Following John Tavares giving up his captaincy to Austin Matthews, numerous reports, and one specifically from Elliot Friedman, has revealed that an extension seems imminent for the former captain. We're going to break down those reports and discuss what it can mean going forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as this has some serious implications for them. Stay tuned for all that on this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself, as we're on the road now to 12,000 subscribers, and the season is getting closer and closer. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. But Darius, some new reports came out specifically today and late last night. We're talking reports from Elliot Friedman, from Chris Johnston, from a lot of different people with numbers regarding Jonathan Tavares and the fact that it seems like an extension is imminent. So let's just dive right into it. We have a lot to go over today. So this is, we'll start with this from Elliot Friedman. So report, Maple Leafs could extend the former captain. Despite losing the captain seat, the Maple Leafs may sign John Tavares to a contract extension. And this is from Elliot Friedman. It says, one of the things I still think in play for Tavares is a potential extension. I don't think it's done. Even if it was, I don't think they would overshadow Matthews. Is, of course, it's his day, which was yesterday. And now it's still kind of, that's still the topic of conversation here. But we also have the report here per Chris Johnson from just a couple hours ago saying there's an expectation the Leafs and Tavares will talk contract extension in the near future. I think it gets done before camp at an extremely team-friendly number. There's little reason to have this drag out. The Leafs want him to stay, and he wants to retire here. And there's also a quote from Elliot Friedman, which we'll get into in a minute, kind of saying the same thing. But there's a whole lot to go over today. Obviously, we got the vibe yesterday that an extension could be imminent, but we have two very notable reporters here basically confirming that an extension is not done yet, but is going to be happening in the coming weeks and is all but imminent at this point.
Well, I feel like I knew already where John Tavares' priorities laid, right, with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it wasn't about being captain or anything like that or the money. He wanted to be a Toronto Maple Leaf to win a Stanley Cup in Toronto for his hometown team, right? So I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to sign an extension. He's probably going to retire a Maple Leaf, and it's going to be team friendly, completely team friendly. And we're going to get to something that's been rumored in terms of number and length of the contract later in the video. But I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to sign a contract extension. And honestly, I don't get the hate for John Tavares either. I think that he was a great captain, right? I obviously have his jersey on my wall behind me, right? I think he's a great player. I still think he's a great player, even though he is regressing a little bit, obviously due to age. But I think he's still going to be a very useful player in his new role for the Toronto Maple Leafs as an assistant captain, obviously still going to be a leader. And I think, he can still put up 80 points, I believe, in a regular season. So it's going to be interesting to watch what he does this season with a little less pressure, I believe, on his shoulders. And if he comes into the season feeling good with a new contract extension, because I feel like it's going to happen before the start of the season, I think that's going to make it that much better. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it seems like it will get done, like Chris Johnson said before the season. And yeah, you look at some of the, we'll get into a potential contract. We can see here from Elliot Friedman, it's been discussed. I don't think that it's impossible that we see Tavares get extended as a Toronto Maple Leaf before the upcoming season. And you mentioned, obviously, we all know that you're high on John Tavares. And I mean, I like as well. That's me. I like John Tavares as well. Maybe not as much as you, but I like the player a lot. And you can see this here when I decided to come to Toronto. Like you mentioned earlier, it's all about winning. His feelings and belief in that hasn't changed. And we know that he has the capability of putting up maybe not 80 points, but I mean, good amount of points. But what I'm curious about now is what he's going to be like under Craig Berube. Now, whether he gets moved, we've had discussions about this, and we know that some people have been talking about it as well. Maybe the third line, maybe he sticks where he was last season. Like, there's a lot of different, and it depends, of course, what happens with Mitch Marner. Seems like he's going to stay. Nick Robertson, all those guys. But he could be headed for a lesser role in next season, obviously, because he's starting to decline a little bit with his age. He still had a pretty good year last year. Not a phenomenal year per se, but I think that at this point, I think his trajectory downward is happening, but not as fast as some fans might have thought. So I think that he's still, like you said, I don't know about 80 points, but definitely possible to perform very well, especially under Craig Berube, who I think can unlock John Tavares a little bit, just like every other player, just by getting a change of scenery, because every single Leaf has been under Sheldon Keefe for the past handful of seasons.
Yeah, I still think that Craig Berube is going to change some things. So I'm interested to see what John Tavares looks like under him. But I think as the salary cap structure changes next year, because we need to know what happens with Mitch Marner too, right? To really get a better idea of what's going to happen with the team. But I could see John Tavares moving to the wing, maybe not even on the second line, could be on a third line role. I could definitely see him as a third line center. The foot speed obviously is slowing down. It never was, a really big attribute of his or anything like that, even when he was younger. So that is slowing down as well. So I could see him, taking on a lesser role like third line center, maybe, move him to the wing or something. But we need to know what's happening with Mitch Marner, because then you're going to have to go out and find another second line center maybe next year or the year after, probably next year already at this point, right? But I still think John Tavares is still a useful player. Their best face-off guy, right? Even when Matthews is on the ice, you have Tavares late in the game taking the face-off. So still very useful. I do believe he can still put up 80 points. I'm not going to lie. I think he's going to have a great season this year, especially if he comes in with an extension. So it's going to be fun to watch. I still think he's a great player, and he's just going to take on a little bit of a different role. He's not going to change who he is, but his role with the team is going to change slightly over the next year and a half.
Yeah, and I think that let's dive into what an extension could look like. So I think it could be, I mean, you have Chris Johnson saying very team friendly, and we all know about the fact that he passes captaincy on and all that. And this, John was on board from the start. He didn't come here to be the captain. He came here to win the Stanley Cup. He knew this day would eventually come. So again, very open, very exciting. But you can see this here now. Again, take this with a very big grain of salt. This guy is not, he's gotten things right in the past, but he's not a reputable insider. So pure speculation at this point. But he says on top of the Tavares giving up the captaincy, sorry, we are hearing he's extending with the Leafs at a 4x4. Again, we're just going to use this as a point of conversation, not saying this is done. Now, it could be. But Darius, I do want to hear your thoughts on this. And if it's true, this is pretty, this changes everything a little bit, because 4 years at $4 million is very, very team friendly. And this dropped before Chris Johnson came out and said that extremely team friendly deal. This would be extremely team friendly. And whether he puts up 80 points, 70 points, 60 points at $4 million over 4 years, you can get behind that. So no matter what your thought is on John Tavares, I think that a 4x4 is objectively a very good contract, especially to let him retire a Leaf and to get rid of the uncertainty heading into next season about what he could be with production-wise with the Leafs.
Yeah, objectively, that is a great contract, right? Now, if I'm going to give out a Darius guarantee here in this video, I would say, I don't know about the years, but I think in terms of salary, it's going to come in between 4 to 5 million. I think he's going to give the team a bit of a break because, like we mentioned, even last year, right? 65 points, I believe he had. Still a great player. And I feel like that's a down year for him, right? He had almost 30 goals. So he's still very useful. He can't take a pay cut where he's going to make $1 million or $2 million. It's just not going to happen, right? So he's still going to be useful for the next 4 years as well, right? He doesn't have too many hard miles on his body, right? He plays pretty much every single game, every single season. So, I think that's a great contract. Obviously, I don't think it's going to look exactly like that, but I would say in the realm of possibility, that contract, it's going to look something like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch what happens, and hopefully it gets done because before the season starts, that is, because there's no reason for this to linger, right? Just get it done. Obviously, he wants to be here. I think the team can definitely use him, and he's going to make less than he was before, significantly less. So it's going to work for both sides, and I think he's a great player, great leader still. I don't understand the hate. I see it in the comments. I see it online. I don't understand the hate with John Tavares. I think he's a great leader and captain, but you can let us know in the comments what you think about that.
Yeah, and I mean, making $4 million, that's a bit less than a third of what he was making in his past, a bit more than a third, sorry. But I don't know. Very interesting. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. I think ultimately John Tavares will be a Maple Leaf. He will retire a Maple Leaf. But I'm just curious at this point what that quote-unquote extremely friendly or team-friendly contract is. But thank you guys for watching. See you soon.